Welcome to Crafty Hints. I'm Chantel. I'm so happy to have you here today. Let's get to DIY 1. I started out with this sign from the Dollar Tree, and it has a little bit of a gray tint, so I gave it a coat of plaster. Then I went into Cricut Design Space and found these rolled pattern flowers. And you can definitely do it with your fingers. And I apologize for mine because you can see I was getting into that plaster, moving that bunny around. I apologize. So you just want to get that rolling. You don't have to have that special tool. I practice with a couple with my fingers and also use these tools. I can also leave a link below. Jennifer Maker has some great ones on her site as well. I think I'll be doing a few of these in the future to show you. But one thing I did learn from my first try going through is to probably not try to fluff out the flower as you go. Just roll it up and then go back and fluff later. But I did see that she does this as well. She'll take part of the flower and then have petals separate. So I thought this might be a good way to go. They aren't very difficult. You can just roll them up tight. I was just trying to give them a little bit more character. So you can just roll it away, but I wanted to show you another way of doing it. Then it has a little flap. You just glue on the bottom and there you go. Don't these kind of remind you of the solo wood flowers? Now, those are beautiful, don't get me wrong, but if they're not in your budget and you have cardstock on hand, why not go to these, right? So this was another design, and for the most part, I just rolled it up and at the end started to flip them out a little bit. One thing I learned later when I went back and was doing a little more looking, these petals that they have separately, they're made so that you can bend it at the bottom. I thought they were kind of meant to slide on. Nope. They're meant so it gives it a little bit of a give, and you can bend the flowers in the center and glue them in the center before you attach them. But just use a pen or something to roll them around to give them a little more character. Now I took some greenery and I'm just wrapping it to make a little wreath for my bunny's head. I think we've all seen the pretty little flower wreaths that some wear on your head during springtime. I thought, wouldn't that be adorable to go on this bunny? And as you can see, that plaster gave it a better hue instead of that darker gray undertone it had. So I just got that manipulated and twisted together until I was happy. And I made one tinier yellow flower and then the other yellow one that you saw. And I'm just gluing those on. I decided that I would center them to the right. And just a little bit of hot glue will attach them. In my extra wreath, I tucked it over the edge of the sign. I was debating how to do that. Did I want a full ring around the back, which you could do as you like. Then I thought, I need another little pop of color. So I took these flowers that I had gotten from the Dollar Tree. Or, well, they're in my stash, but I know I've seen ones like them at the Dollar Tree if they weren't from there. And I just snipped off little pieces. And just attaching those in. I think that's a wonderful accent, don't you? All right, now I took some Tumbling Tower blocks and just stacked them on top of each other and glued them to give it a little bit of support from the back. In the middle, I decided, let me flip them sideways and glue them that way. Gave it a little more support. How adorable is this? Oh, I love how she turned out. Isn't she pretty? Perfect accent for your Easter decor. DIY 2. For this one, I started out with 6 dice and gave them a coat of that plaster paint. I gave it on all sides except for the bottom. And on one side, I'm going to be putting Easter. This is reminiscent of the little tiny wooden blocks that I had made for a tier tray in the past. On the other side, I'm going to put spring. So I will just make sure that I'm lining them up so that I can flip them over. When you're applying these, make sure you do attach them to your hand or possibly your shirt because they are poster stickers, so they're extra sticky, and I did find they pulled up a little bit of my paint, unlike my little stickers did on my wood blocks. So I'm just trying to help you learn from my mistakes. And you always want to go from the center of your sticker out. Basically, we're not trying to go against the grain where our paint might get under the sticker. These are so fun, and everyone loves those little wood blocks on the tiered tray. I'll make some new, different ones for my Easter tray coming up this month. All right, so on Easter, I decided to give it the Waverly chalk paint in Pool, and I just did all of them the same color. Pretty simple. Now I'm flipping them over and using what I had on my brush steel of that Pool. And I'm going to use a couple different colors. So I had to figure out, okay, wait, I'm going to use 3 colors. So let me find the right letter that I also need in Pool. So once I found that, I used the rest of the paint on my brush. And then I will paint the other blocks in other colors just to give it that burst of spring colors. So here we are. I used, not moss, celery. That's what I used for that one. And here I am taking off the sticker. And you can just pull that off. And as you can see, I did get a little bit of pull up from the paint. That's okay. We can go back. I want these to look a little bit distressed anyways, so it worked for me. If not, you maybe want to give your blocks 2 coats of paint, but make sure it's totally dry. So maybe paint them the day before and then go back. These more swirly stickers pulled up more than the other block sort of letters. And there we go. So now I'm just touching that up just a little bit. It didn't take, too much to fix that. And again, I didn't make it perfect. I do love the plaster paint because it's right in between white and ivory. And that's what I ended up distressing these with then, is the ivory. And the ivory is just a hint past plaster. So here I am with my little chunky brush, just distressing that a little bit on the edges and across the paint. That white can be very stark white, so if you're wanting a bright white, it is wonderful. But I tend to go towards ivory, or plaster is actually the one I go to more, and then ivory, if you want just a bit of a cream color. So a good distress, if you want these distressed a little bit more, I might go in with mineral or maybe hazelnut, but hazelnut might be a little bit dark. And I just went across all the blocks. I wanted to show you on a couple different colors here what that looked like. Pretty simple. You can do this. Let's create decor for your home and have fun. Oh, didn't those turn out pretty? There's spring and here's Easter. Could stack these up. If you're enjoying these, I do hope that you'll like and give me a comment on what your favorite is, and don't forget to subscribe. Let's get to DIY 3. I took some Tumbling Tower blocks and I'm going to make that cross that you saw. I want to show you here that not all Tumbling Tower blocks are exactly the same size. I'll throw in a couple packages and sometimes they're a little bit different. So just be mindful of that as you're choosing your blocks. So I took 6 blocks and glued them in pairs of 2 vertically. And just a little bit of wood glue. With this raw wood, it bonds it so much better than hot glue would. And now I'll just put a little bit on the top and I'm going to stack these 4 together. And now I'm going to go with 2 horizontally, actually 4, and then I stack those the other way. Now I have these little pit berries that are on a little bit of like jute twine and wire, and I thought that would make the wreath that was the wreath of, or the crown of thorns that was placed on Jesus' head when he was crucified. Gosh, this really made me stop and reflect on this. I didn't like the pit berries. They were a little bit thicker than I thought the thorns would be. So I grabbed this, I think it was rosemary from Walmart from last year, and I painted that in truffle and then glued these on. So just a little bit of glue and placing those around it, just taking off little snips of it. That truffle matched the crown pretty well. And just continuing around if you want them on both sides or however you feel this looks best. But I wanted to make sure it actually looked like what it probably should. Now I took a wet wipe and took some antique wax and went over the cross. Just gave it a little bit of darker. Now it's an old rugged cross, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect. And I just went on both sides of this, and you can definitely tell some of these blocks are sanded more than others. So be mindful of that when you're choosing your blocks as well. Or you might want to just give them a light sanding. I did put on a glove there. I tend to find that antique wax gets all under my fingernails. I used the sign from Thanksgiving and gave it a coat of truffle on the back. And now I took 2 Tumbling Tower blocks, had glued 2 together and painted those, and then one of those little tiny cube blocks and painted that in truffle. Once this was dry, I gave it some hot glue, of course, and now I'm going to attach the cross. Just attaching it to the base of the 2 blocks, and then it has support from the back with that little mini block. Once that cooled, I glued the bottom and will attach it to my other base. I thought this gave it a nice finished look to it. Now, I had this old t-shirt. Now, they mocked Jesus when they put him on the cross, and, you know, purple was a sign of royalty back then. And so they gave him a robe in purple. And so this is to represent that. So I just folded it over, glued it so it had a nice finished edge, and then gave it a little bit of hot glue. And so my seam didn't show. I just gave it a little bit of a twist so the seam's on the back, and glued that down. Now there, I just glued on the crown of thorns. So I wanted to represent the true meaning of Easter also. Oh, I think this turned out so pretty. As should have flipped those to Easter also for this picture, but I think, you know, it is part of spring and Easter is the reason for the cross. All right, here's DIY 4. I took this automotive cloth from the Dollar Tree and I'm just measuring my bunny here, but I cut out 2. So after you measure it, and now I took some of my maize chalk paint and I put it in a glass. Now I added some water and I'm putting one of those pieces in there. I wanted to color it yellow for one of the little chicks. So this was just an idea and I think it worked out pretty well. Now I took 2 of these wooden ornaments from the Dollar Tree and I find it's easier to do the glue with a paintbrush to me. You get just what you need. It bonds, you know, the wood, it gives a nice chemical bond that boom, it's just cemented together. They're not moving. So I did 2 of the bunnies, 2 of the chicks, and then I just was trying to dry that cloth off faster. Added spray adhesive to the wooden ornaments. I love that spray adhesive because it has a super strong hold if you do it right away. If you let it dry, it's like a Post-it note. So I did it with the bunny and I did it with the chick. Then I just trimmed around with my scissors. I didn't try often, you know, I take off like scrapbook paper and things with sandpaper or a nail file. I just went in with my scissors. Now you could leave a little bit more of it out if you don't want the wood edge to show at all. And I do have my silicone mat there, so I put down a plate because the silicone mat will grab those fuzzies a little bit. So I do love the silicone mat though, because if you paint or your glue, all of that wipes right off. I have been using butcher paper in the past, but decided to go with this. I'd used a blue one before. Now I just use some of the fibers from the bunny on the chick at the top to give it like, I don't know, a little bit of hair or something, feathers at the top. I thought it just made it cute and fun. Now I cut off a little bit of it for the beak and I'm just going in with my pumpkin Waverly chalk paint. And I thought it just gave it a nice cute little pop of color there off of the beak. And there the 2 are. I think they're just adorable. But the bunny's got to have a fluffy tail, so I just grabbed a pom-pom and a dot of glue. And there he is. So soft and fuzzy. You know, when you paint that for the chick, you might need to fluff it up. I just took the ruler over it. Now for the stands, I just, used my wood glue to glue one block on top of the other, and then a little bit of wood glue to attach these to the wooden ornaments. Now for that quick hold, you can put a little bit of hot glue at the top on the back just to help it grab it. Now I had this egg from another Easter sign and I just tore off all the paper and, the sticker and all that. And now I'll come in with some scrapbook paper. I like this scrapbook paper. It has a texture to it. It's kind of neat. And I like my Elmer's craft stick glue and just put that on there. Super simple. All of these DIYs can be made by you and some of them with your kids. I think they're fun. Get the kids going on crafts and their mind going in a different direction. I do hope if you've been enjoying these that you've left a comment below on which is your favorite or which one you might try. Or if you have an Easter craft that you're going to do that I haven't thought of, I'd love to hear about it. Or send me a picture. Tag me in Instagram or send me an email, craftyhints@gmail.com. All right, a little bit of glue here and we're all done. I do hope that you've enjoyed all of these today and it's helped inspire you to get a little bit of crafty and that you've grabbed a couple crafty hints along the way. Oh, aren't these cute and almost cuddly, right? Thanks again for watching today. Here's a couple other videos that you might enjoy, and click on my picture if you'd like to subscribe. Thank you and have a blessed day.